Elena, welcome to the shoot room.
Thank you, Rich.
You've been on the podcast before, but this is the first time you're on the podcast in a new role. So this is the first time we're able to tell people that you're going to be joining to be the director of Europe for Oxygen Conservation.
I'm really excited about that. Really,
How
really.
how on earth did that even come to be? Why on earth did you want to be part of our mad adventure?
Where do I start? Um, a few years ago, something happened globally, bad global news. And remember when you came on my podcast, you talked about you guys listening to the land, that you buy an estate and you listen to the land. So at that moment in time, something bad is going on in the world and everything feels like it's crumbling down. And at that moment, I feel like I'm listening to the land and it's telling me, this is your purpose. That's what you need to be doing. Don't leave me. Help me get restored. Might sound a little bit cuckoo, but ever since then, that was my purpose that I was striving for. And I've actually been visualizing a lot of things on what I want to do and how I want to implement that purpose. And about half a year ago, I've realized that that's what OC is doing. And I know I've been always joking that I would love to be one of your interns. I did really mean it. And here we are. At some point, everything just clicked together. I realized, oh, sees it. I loved what you're doing. I love your team culture. I love the speed with which you're creating impact. And it all came together. I realized I don't want to do anything else.
It's absolutely incredible. We couldn't be happier to have you here. It's been months in the making. It's felt like the alignment of so many things. So we'd started to take invites to speak at conferences in Europe. You helped advise us on that and how we should talk and frame what we're doing. And we've had such a massive inflow of offers of investment, offers of partnership, offers of work. And that with you approaching us saying, what would OC look like in Europe and can you play a part in that? It just felt like the absolute perfect alignment. And so we're recording this literally December, the night of our intern assessment, which is super, super exciting, which makes your play on words about wanting to be an intern particularly pertinent. You're going to join us in early 26. What are you most excited about for when you come across to OC?
I'm excited about working together, about being part of a extremely high performing, driven team with a fun team culture as well, because you need to enjoy things while you're doing it. And I'm excited about making impact that you can touch and feel on a large scale. I think that's why it's so important. It's not something theoretical. It's not something somebody else is doing. It's a whole land transformation that you can see almost near real time. And it makes it so tangible and so real. That's what a lot of people in sustainability sector are looking for, the impact that they can feel. And oxygen conservation absolutely delivers that. And I think the strategy that you have, say land restoration, is not new. It has been there for a very, very long time. Um, Even in ancient Greece, they managed to restore forests. So it's history repeating itself on a broader scale. But the way you communicate it, the way you build momentum, the way you execute it is absolutely unique. And that's what makes you stand out. And that's what makes me really excited about it.
Thank you. Thank you for choosing us and thank you for believing in this next chapter of OC. It's super, super exciting. For people meeting you for the first time, who is Elena Doms? What are the key chapters that get you to be the person that sat with us today?
Elena Doms is a person that was born in the Arctic on the polar circle. So I've spent my childhood in the boreal forests and also in a small piece of land that my parents bought where they were growing vegetables and berries. Um, I swam in the ice cold river. I walked on swamps. I gathered mushrooms and berries and heard stories of my dad meeting a bear and then coming back home intact. I walked on ice to cross the river. That's me. I lived in polar days and polar nights. Then I moved to university, and that's when I first came across soils and land. I was actually studying into how chemicals and pesticides spoil land and create super weeds, and that's when I first realized something is wrong. Then I moved to Belgium, worked at MasterCard for 11 years. Before that, at a social NGO with impact. And once I had two kids, my heart was really calling for a bigger purpose, for doing something that would be really impactful, not just planting a few trees here and there, not just implementing a new technology that would facilitate something and you don't know what. It was really calling for an impact on bigger scale. And that led me to Earth Plus, where I met Frederick and we worked together for several years on land cleanup and bring a business model to land restoration through construction materials. And now I'm really excited for this next step of the journey of land restoration on a larger scale through nature capital.
I love how each of the key chapters of your background, so like genuine connection to some of the most precious environments in the world and where the impacts of climate change are really playing out and becoming real. You then add unparalleled experience in significant, serious financial services, then overlay data and tech as well. And it's the whole spectrum of everything that comes together for OC. So it feels absolutely perfect, especially with your network and reach across Europe. Like you get embarrassed when I say this, but you are legitimately famous in the environment sector. Like a LinkedIn top voice, more than 100,000 LinkedIn followers. We talk about momentum and amplification, but the reach you have across this sector is astonishing. Can you talk a little bit about how you've found that reach and that network useful for helping you progress the business?
First of all, you're so great at elevating me. Thank you.
Oh, this is only the beginning. We've got the marketing team in the room, and they think you're like the biggest gift they could have for Christmas because they've had to put up with me so far. They get an actual celeb now to really ramp everything
Also,
up and let fly.
it's a bit of a too big word. Um, but yeah, it's very weird to talk about yourself. I am this and I'm that. I'm not a person like that. So I appreciate it when you shine a light.
You've got a hype machine now.
Let's talk LinkedIn and the support of LinkedIn. I came to LinkedIn at some point around 4 years ago when I realized that a real job in sustainability with impact is not going to land itself on my lap. I've tried back then applying for different roles and always got automatic responses at 1 o'clock at night. I've had my degree in energy climate back then and the kids, and I thought now is the time. So that's when I came to LinkedIn. And I thought, I know I'm capable. I know I have a lot of passion. I know I want to do this. Then I need to start showcasing people that actually know stuff. And I need to start connecting with new people. So what I did was I started reaching out to 50 people in sustainability per day. And I started posting several times a week. And whenever people think, oh, you have such a great LinkedIn network, well, it's just a compounding interest of 4 years of relentless work of putting it out there, sharing the knowledge, sharing opinion, recording videos, driving impact driven business in the meantime. But it's not the number of the followers or connections that matter. All of these people, I really appreciate them. But what you start really feeling is the partnerships that come from that network. We've met through someone who introduced us through
Do you
LinkedIn.
even remember who?
I can't recall it. I need to go back in
I'm not sure
messages.
either. Yeah.
We really need to dig that out.
Elle's going to look, I think. She's on it looking. But
Brilliant.
but it was that connection and conversation, wasn't it?
It
And
was. It was. I was so green. I remember you were so cool. You had it all figured out. You had a lot of books to read. I was like, this is nice.
I think that's a tip to anyone out there who wants to try and help. If people ask your advice and you don't have an answer, recommend a book. It's always a good like fail safe. Recommend someone who has figured it out and can ask that way forward. Maybe that's why I have the bookshelves behind me. So if in doubt, I can just spin around and go, that one will do. Suggest that book.
It was the book Subscribe.
Oversubscribed.
Oversubscribe. Yes, it was that
Absolutely.
one.
So Daniel Priestley, who's the author of that book, one of his good friends, Rob Gardner, was on the podcast last week. And
Brilliant.
Daniel's just written a new book, and we literally took a picture with Daniel's book and sent it to him. So hopefully we'll get Daniel on the podcast at some point. But he's become a megastar since that book. Like he's on Stephen Bartlett all the time at the moment. What I loved about the oversubscribe thing was it just felt like it encapsulated how you approach things. It's not about building a brand, and it's not about, I joke about celebrity, but the reason you've been able to do that is you're just trying to help people. share information. It's about what you can give, not what you take. And that's what I've loved about growing a connected network on LinkedIn. And actually, it's kind of reframed my view of community as well. So I've really struggled with what that word community means. Maybe it's because I've got a weird family background. I've moved around the UK a lot and never settled in a place. But I always struggled with what we really mean by community now. And I've come to realize it's not geographically bound. Like you're part of our community, even though you lived in a completely different country. So, yes, it can be geographical, it can be your neighbours, it can be the people that live and work near you, but it can also be people at the other side of the world.
I love that part about the community because LinkedIn is where I found my people. Because sometimes it feels so lonely to be in the sustainability and impact space. You think, I really want to do that. How come nobody understands? How come nobody does anything? And that's how you meet those people that feel the same. And actually, we realize that there are so many of us out there. And um, Yuval Harari was on Love Tomorrow, and he said 50 people working together can achieve a lot more than 500 people working alone. That's what community does.
Love it. That's exactly the ethos around. So we were talking about the culture of OC and why we're able to stay optimistic at a really difficult time for the climate. It's because together, each of the people can and have done the impossible over and over again. Um,
That's why, because you literally see a land and you literally see a transformation for the better. Of course, you're going to be optimistic about the environment because you know you can have impact to do that,
it's
and you
so
know things are
fast.
improving.
You can, because our model is to take away the things that are obviously bad, things, take away the pesticides, the chemicals, the burning of the hillside, take away the things that are immediately doing damage. You already see such a fast return of nature, and then month after month after you see it compound and build, and it just the echoes of the environment echo our business model so much. It's just the perfect synergy. Um, you've got a really unique perspective of viewing OC and the UK's approach to natural capital from an objective position. What do you think the UK does well around natural capital to start with?
I feel the UK is the front leader on the natural capital, and I think everybody else needs to catch up. You have woodland code, peatland code, water credits, biodiversity units, a mandate where companies that build and construct have to restore the same amount of biodiversity. For me, that's where UK is leading. There are other areas, of course, where it's lagging behind, but in terms of nature capital, UK is the leader, and other countries need to follow suit.
Those governance, structural
Yeah,
approaches to it, regulatory frameworks, that's the areas where you feel we're particularly strong?
methodologies, real implementation. It's not at the level of let's brainstorm methodology and see how we're going to implement it. Maybe in some years we're going to start issuing credits. It's already working, it's already live, it's showing the whole world that it's already there. And that's what I love about it.
So on the other side of the equation, where do you think Europe's strong and where could the UK learn from what's happening in Europe?
Europe in general has a history of wanting to be a leader in sustainability regulation. Yes, in the last years it's a little bit uncertain, but still, that's the role that Europe has assumed and the role that Europe wants to have globally to always lead in terms of sustainability ambition, cutting greenhouse gas emissions, nature restoration, etc. So, Europe has very interesting laws like the soil health law, for example, where now you need data collection to understand what is happening with the soil. That is a good thing. Europe has a lot of regulations in place to enable governments, to enable companies to act. And even with simplification of the rules, it's still a front leader when it comes to that. The natural capital is where Europe needs to catch up, but it will happen. It's already happening because Europe is issuing methodologies on carbon farming. Next year, Europe is working on biodiversity regulation, so it's the next big frontier for Europe. And I think merging these two approaches and letting Europe catch up is a perfect moment now to act.
Do you think almost we're ahead of the curve in terms of as we decide to step into Europe with OC, you think the timing's right for that?
Absolutely. To be the front runner, to be the leader, to do impact on a large scale is the absolutely perfect timing because the regulation is catching up. And now the capital is there. The investors, actually there are so many investors apparently that have large amounts of money. They just don't know where to invest them in. They don't want to invest a small amount. They want to invest big amount right away. And there are not enough sustainable impact companies to invest those amounts in. So that's a perfect timing to step into Europe with oxygen conservation.
What really hit it home to me, we closed the IPE conference in Rotterdam, and the panel that spoke before us had representatives of each of the Dutch and Belgian large pension funds. And there was this amazing keynote speaker. And he said, he quietened the room and said, all of you need to realize, because the room was full of capital allocators and asset managers, all of you have made a commitment, legally binding, to hit targets that you can't hit right now by 2030, and you don't have a mechanism to do it. And that's a problem for all of you, which I couldn't have asked for a better setup, because we came on afterwards and went, well, we've got a plan if you want to try and solve it this way. And that just absolutely turned the tide for us in terms of, so this last couple of days I've been out in Sweden. We're due to go to Denmark. We've got inflow coming from Portugal, Spain, France, people saying we want to see OC over here. It's really interesting. Actually, it's a Daniel Priestleyism. You don't build a business and figure out if people want it. People want a business, and you satisfy a need. And the demand and the call for us to get to Europe has just been astonishing. One of the things I'm really interested in. So the EU certainly led the way with the EU ETS and the sort of regulated carbon markets. How do you see the potential alignment of the regulated and the voluntary, and what opportunity that might present to us?
The EU still aligning it. So you have the permits with the European trading system where they're allocated and every year they extract a little bit of permits to make them less so that companies have to decarbonize. But then you have the voluntary market on the other hand. And I think it will take a while to align them because there are other regulations that are coming into place as well, like carbon border adjustment mechanism, for example, or deforestation directive. So there's a lot of pieces that are going to come into play. The good thing is Europe is taking hands on in terms of nature capital regulation with methodologies with the registry and not anymore relying on global methodologies or other players. And I think that's brilliant because it's a time for it. That means Europe believes in it. That means Europe wants to make it more regulated, more transparent, more trustworthy, which is a good thing, which we need in the natural capital movement. Because when you talk about carbon credits, there's a lot of criticism. But on the other hand, when that criticism comes, not many people understand what the impact on the ground is, on the local communities, on the local land, on the projects, and why it's important. So, all those regulations coming in are a sign that Europe believes in it and Europe wants to make it happen and make it better. How well it will play into each other with the European trading system and the voluntary market is a question mark. I think at the beginning they're going to be separate and they're going to function separately. And we're going to have to see what happens in the future and how they're aligned.
So some of the discussion in the UK has been that the UK ETS and the voluntary market will converge 28, 29, I think.
Mhm.
What I think will happen is actually for OC, that'll be less relevant because at the higher premium end of the product market, we're already north of the sort of value point. But
Yeah.
what I think it will do is it will bring up the base of that market. So it will almost underpin it, because if you can swap like for like within those markets, why would you buy a certificate to pollute when you could buy a voluntary credit that gave you that and so many more added benefits? So I think it will bring up the whole market. There might be some positive movement for us at the top end, but it'll certainly bring up the bottom end of it. We had a really interesting approach from one of the leading UK investment banks that wanted us to think about an IPO.
Mhm.
Now, we think that's too early. I think the portfolio needs to be closer to £1 billion. And I think probably we're 5 years as a sector away from having the structural instruments and things to make an IPO work. But interestingly, their modeling approach, they viewed regulated carbon credits and voluntary ones as interchangeable. For their model, they said that's the best market we've got. It's not perfect, but it's something we can track towards. So that was really interesting. And in some of the sort of investment banks and institutional investors, they very much think about it in that lens, which I think will be interesting moving forward.
Very interesting to watch. It might be once again an area where the UK starts doing something first and the EU catches up. Could be the other way around, but very interesting area to watch. In general, it is indeed a good thing because if we look at the ETS carbon pricing, it's also higher than majority of the
Yeah,
carbon
from the
credits out
standard
there.
ones. Yeah.
So exactly if they converge, then the price should go up. With carbon border adjustment mechanism, same thing, it's going to go up. And the closer every country is going to get to their net zero commitments and not fulfilling them on time, the higher the price of the ton of carbon is going to be.
One of the one of the reasons we agreed to go across to Sweden, and so for our listeners, we went to Sweden to do a guest lecture at Gothenburg University to 60 MBA students with a real financial focus and a load of dignitaries that Victor and the team invited in. Thank you. Um, I wanted to test a couple of things. I wanted to ask the audience. So I love audience participation. So I asked for a show of hands of the 60 people. How many people believe that the price of carbon would go up dramatically in the future years? 58 of 60 hands went up. Even I was like, wow. I don't know if I'd have got 58 of 60. Okay. So that was really interesting.
No, you wouldn't get that in the
I,
UK?
I don't know. My guess would have been like two thirds, 40. Yeah. So it's really interesting. So these are MBA students, a
Mhm.
range of ages and backgrounds, but yeah, vast majority, like legitimately 58 out of 60, like, yep, it'll definitely go up in time. The other bit we really wanted to test is, and I've always liked the idea of sort of you get the best professional football coaches in the world, and they'll go coach in the British league and then the Spanish league and the Italian league to see if their approach, their systems, their processes work in different cultures and different languages and regulate. So I really want to know, did the OC model, will it work in other geographies? So being able to give that lecture, I took Q&A for over an hour. I wanted to see if they'd like our brand, if they'd like the way we thought about it, and we got the most unbelievable responses with people. One of the dignitaries posted this afternoon that they felt like they met the Google of natural capital yesterday, which I love
I
that.
love
It's
that.
so good, right?
I love that.
And these three, I also talked about business and entrepreneurship and how many people in the room were going to go into sort of traditional corporate sectors or go into more of a business startup mindset. Three young guys put their hands up and were like, we're the ones that are going to go into entrepreneurship. And they stayed behind at the end to come and say thank you because of all the lectures. It had been very much focused on the corporate side of things, where I was like, no, no, no. In a world with AI, and I got a bit playful with them and said, well, why are you going to go into a corporate environment? And everyone talked about job security and things like that. And I'm like, not anymore. Anyone who's in a corporate's going to go through a change program every 2 or 3 years. So we ended up talking a lot about entrepreneurship, and these three guys came up and just said, "Thank you for opening our mind up to that type of thing." The question that
Well, I wanted to say, first of all, about the price of carbon. It's just a basic law of supply and demand, right? The more carbon we have in the atmosphere, the faster we need to decrease it. So if there is a lot of demand for lowering the carbon, the price of the ton of the carbon is going to go up. So it's the standard market mechanism. And it's good to see that people understand that it's going to be the case, whether you like carbon credits or natural capital or not. And then in terms of impact and what people want to do, I think that depends because you can be in a big corporation and you can make a lot of impact. It's
can
going to
you
be, you can. Depends on the company. It's going to be painful and slow because you need to bring a lot of stakeholders on board. But once they are on board, then the impact is global immediately. Because I've been interviewing a lot of CEOs of big corporations for my book, and it was really hopeful and humbling to get to know how much they're pushing across. But you need to be in the right space for that. Not every business is there yet. The entrepreneurial journey has its own pits and jumps and highs and lows, right? It's also incredibly difficult. It's a lot more difficult than working in a corporation. And you have to face a lot of uncertainty and you have to pave your own way forward. You can make impact faster, but you also have a challenge of scaling that impact globally. So I think it depends on what type of person you are. You can make impact here or there. Personally, you and I, we've chosen one way of the journey. I've spent quite a long time in the corporate world, so I know that side of the journey as well. But we need people on both ends. We need the corporates to be on board because they are the largest emitters, because they are the ones that need to buy natural capital to make an impact. And we need entrepreneurs and startups and companies like Oxygen Conservation to scale and to provide the resources for these businesses to innovate and make that impact.
Yeah, that's the right. That's the right answer. Um, it's all hard. Choose your hard.
Yeah.
I think that choose the hard that works for you.
But choose the hard because many people take the easy road. They don't know how to contribute. They want to contribute, but they don't know how. Choose the hard. We are in the times where we need to choose the hard. We don't have any other option.
We should plug your book. When's your book coming out?
April 2nd.
April 2nd, 2026. Whoop, whoop, whoop. It's going to be awesome. So, book 2 from OC is coming out around that similar time as well. So, we just need to make sure we don't bump into each other. Yeah.
What's the book going to be about?
Book 2, Rewilding Wealth. What's it about, Abby? Yeah. It's the second chapter. So, you very kindly wrote a lovely review for book 1 for me. Book 1 was the ideas, the concept, the foundation of OC. Book 2's really scaling the how you do it, bringing in the financial side of it, the structure, the data, the tech, the systems, the process, the learning, the real. It's half textbook, half storybook about
Nice.
how you do the business. That's a new line. I haven't used that one yet. Thank you. We'll be reusing that.
You should do that, yeah.
Yeah, and you had some amazing people in your book and some bang average ones as well, right?
You meant
I
yourself
did
there.
mean
No,
myself.
no, you
Yeah.
are an amazing person in my eyes.
Oh, you're very kind. You're very kind. I mentioned about going to Sweden to test our business model. What are the bits of OC you think really easily translate and work in Europe, and which are the bits we're going to have to think about differently?
I love the pyramid, first of all, that you have in terms of the business model and the land being the basis for it, having nature capital, renewable energy, sustainable tourism on top of it. The whole business case model makes perfect sense. The exact details of implementation will probably vary in Europe. We're going to have to dig in a lot of
So we'll
data.
get the stack, but the shape of it might change.
Yes, yes.
I like that.
The land is definitely going to be the foundational piece, like it is. It's also something that is de-risking it for the investors because whatever happens, you still have the land. And land in Europe has been going up in price, and it will go up in price with climate change, with drought, with climate change, with extreme weather events, with the whole agriculture moving from south of Europe to north of Europe. The land prices are going up and are going to go up. I'll give you an example. Let's take a hectare of agricultural land in Belgium. In 2017, good piece of land was around 60 to 80,000 euro per hectare, which is a lot, I know. In 2025, it's 100,000 euro per hectare. In some places, 120,000 euro per hectare. And it's going to go up because the output and the need to produce is going to be there.
For context, that's 5 to 10x what you might pay in the UK.
That depends for which land, right?
Of course, yeah.
So I'm just giving you this as an example in terms of how quickly land prices are growing. Of course, with the OC, we're looking at different types of lands, not prime agricultural land, because that's also not the land we're going to turn into natural capital. But it shows the trend, the tendency of how the land prices are going. And for me, that's the foundational piece that is really important for the whole OC model. That's one. We're going to have to see how to adjust the natural capital part of it because you have some things that are not yet in place in Europe that Europe is implementing, like carbon farming regulation and biodiversity regulation. We're going to have to see how the pricing of that changes and varies. You have some things that are already more widespread in Europe, like soil carbon, for example. That one is more widespread than in the UK.
Yeah,
So,
and we haven't approached that yet. So that's a whole untapped area of the portfolio.
yeah.
Chris is super excited about exploring that with you because right now we haven't put a pound on soil carbon, but the potential that's significant.
The potential is significant. It works for the moment for agricultural land. So there are a lot of things that we're going to have to piece together in terms of what are the best places in Europe to bet on to start with, because it can it can take us anywhere. And of course, going in the future, the portfolio can be in the north, in the south, in the center, in different countries. But to start with, we're going to have to piece together where the land prices make sense, where the natural capital makes sense, where we can make this good return model for the investors that's going to be de-risked and attractive. So for me, it's the same basis of the pyramid, the same pieces of the puzzle, because those you nailed down, you are speaking investors' language. And whether it's an investor in the UK or investor in Europe, they're looking for the same things, especially if it's an impact investor. But the exact percentages or numbers on it might vary, but the basis is going to stay the same.
I love how open we are on this. I think if we were targeting one particular country or specific geography, it'd be quite limited. But the exploration we're going to have with you over the next 12 months, we're going to really understand those limitations, the challenges, the difficulties. We're going to be working at a scale way beyond what we've done before. We're going to be working with a range of climate, weather challenges that we've not even considered, a species. The fundamentals and the structures are in place, but everything else is going to be different, right?
That's the beautiful part of it, right? And I'd love to have a concrete, exact answer for you to say it's going to be here, this is how it's going to be look like, and this is exactly what will turn out. But let's face it, it's a journey that we have to overtake. There's a lot of things that we have to rediscover and understand to build it together. And I think that's the exciting part because we're also inviting everyone else to be on that journey together with us.
We For a lot of years we've been quite discreet about our use of data and information because it's the crown jewels. It's the thing that's allowed us to buy land very selectively at a speed and at a quality that's just surpassed others in the sector. What I think is exciting now is we've had that realization that we need to talk about that more openly, that we can maybe in the future find a way that we can offer up software as a service and platforms for people to interact and work with those systems and processes. Um, the data side of what we do is going to be an absolute key to finding the next land assets. How important do you think it's going to be?
Well, first of all, let's roll back to reality shows. Why do people want to watch them? Because they see the journey of a character. Nobody wants to see, we have done this, we're awesome. Everybody wants to see the real journey with the ups and downs. And I think that's why it's so nice to be open about the things that we are doing, because then everybody can, vouch and support and give inputs and see how they can help make an
That's a
impact.
beautiful segue for a shout out for Penny for the Inside Oxygen boys. Can we get a round of applause, please? Which is exactly trying to do that, show the reality of
Brilliant.
the miles and the hours and the challenges and the difficulties and the number of espressos that keep us going.
Which creates trust, right? Being open creates trust. It's really important in nowadays world where people want authenticity, especially with so much AI and content being out there. People want authenticity and the real thing. So that's one. Second, data is going to be critical and very important indeed. And I'm not talking about type of data where we ask AI where we should invest. It definitely can provide the right input and the sources that we are going to have to scroll, but there is so much granularity to that data. If you take any country, the land prices can vary from 1,000 per hectare to 80,000 per hectare within a few kilometers, depending on the type of land, the usage of that land, the state of that land, what it was used before. So just having a general data estimation is not going to be enough to make that model work. It's going to be a lot of work in terms of that data, but also the state of the environment and how that can be improved. And in terms of natural capital modeling, which you guys are at the front of, which now I can say we are at the front of. Oh, that feels good. Uh,
Lara's going to love that one. The best way I got on the whiteboard yesterday with these students and started so we get the question of how do you value land, and people expect there to be like, oh, we have a range of X to Y. So I was able to say, okay, let's let you under the hood a little bit here. And I showed like the decision tree model we had that said you might have 50 different types of land across 30 different geographies of lots of different grades. So actually you get a set of equations and parameters, and we value every square meter of land. And I was able to explain we shop in the difference between what the market traditionally thinks and what we know that land's worth. And you could see people waking up to it. And I'm like, it's essentially Moneyball for the environment. We're shopping in that arbitrage. And everyone was like, oh my God, we get it. And what I love about that analogy is it brings together the key threads that birth the DNA of OC: high performance, sport, data, and now increasingly AI, machine learning, the remote sensing, the drone side of it. I think the biggest secret people don't know about OC is that we're a data platform and a tech company as much as we are an environmental one. And I think 2026, we need to share that a little bit more because I think that's the best way we can help the sector.
I was looking today at your river monitoring and the water quality and things you were doing. It looks so cool. We had a conversation about that. It looked amazing.
That's where so every week someone says to us, "Will you manage land for other people? Will you provide sort of consultancy services?" I don't think it fits our model in terms of we want to keep a really elite team, and if we're going to provide that service across lots of other estates, we'd need to get significantly bigger too quickly, I think. Whereas I think the potential of providing the software tools, the techniques, the monitoring, software as a service is a real gap in this sector that we
Yeah.
could step into in the future. I'm not saying we're going to do it immediately, but it's certainly a direction of travel with the expertise, the tech, the data scientists we've got, which are super exciting. Um, you mentioned high performance culture. How do you think our culture aligns and differs with sort of startup cultures you might see in Europe?
It's a very good question. In general, what I see is impact startup culture is very high performing. Everybody is working on tight deadlines, not just in terms of capital returns, but in terms of environmental impact. It's a lot of energy, a lot of sleepless nights in terms of pushing really, really hard. So I think in general, if I look at my favorite impact founders across the UK or Europe, the culture is very similar. It's a lot of high performance, but also a lot of fun because otherwise you cannot manage it. It's always people that are passionate about making impact and passionate about seeing their ideas succeed. And you have to overcome so many hurdles to make that happen. Actually, now I really understand that after the journey of the last 3 years. You really have to work 1,000% harder than you have worked before. So I don't think in terms of high performance, culture of a C is very different at heart from other impact founders. But what I find different about your culture is so much energy and drive and so much combination with being close to the land and close to nature. It's not just working hard in an office. We often hear these stories of how Amazon or Microsoft or Apple were founded in a garage of someone. Here you actually have land, you have people on the land, they connect to that, and that makes them work harder. So that is a very unique piece of a C where you can literally touch your own impact and not just imagine that it's somewhere out there. And I think that's what lights up people from the inside and leads to even higher performance.
Um, the very first thought that OC might be a thing was founded on a hillside in Patagonia.
Voilà.
So, Mark, David, Glenn, Roy, the founders of Oxygen House, this predates me. They took a trip as a group of friends to visit the Tompkinson Foundation out in South America and thought, what if we could do something like this in the UK? If there was an idea that something like this might work, they came back, spoke to me, and said, what might that look like as a business model? And together it became OC. So, yeah, we didn't start in a garage, but we did start on a hillside, which is really lovely.
Which is part of your DNA now.
Absolutely. Um, one of the challenges that we sometimes get in the UK is that some people still find the idea of valuing nature difficult. So they want to go to the moral concept of it being priceless. So my perspective is that doesn't mean priceless, it means worthless, and it means you're not putting a value on it, so you're actually not treating it with respect. Now, when we spent time out in New York Climate Week, we discussed some of the differences between the sort of culture around natural capital in the US and the UK. And in the US, they could not understand that concept at all. It was like, well, no, of course, why wouldn't you put a price on it? It's the right thing to do. How do you think the European context will go with just the idea of natural capital and using currency and market mechanisms to value nature?
It's a very good question and a very good moral dilemma because we've been free riding on nature for as long as we remember. Just because it's there, the air we breathe, the water, we've been polluting it, we've been doing everything to destroy it. And yes, there has been no price on it, but that also led to the consequences that we don't want to have. Now, there are different ways to put price on nature. If you look at the forest and you just count carbon that it sequesters, it's one price. It's a price of carbon credit per ton. If you look at it differently in terms of what are the species are there in the forest and biodiversity and what are the different interconnections of life that are there, you arrive at a different price of that nature. But then when you look in a third way where you really cut down to the ground and see all the surrounding areas and how that forest creates rain for somewhere else, how it prevents floods for somewhere else, all the ecosystem services that it provides and the oxygen that it creates, it becomes really priceless and much more expensive. So there are different ways to price nature. And currently, with the way market mechanisms work and voluntary market work, no, maybe it's not ideal, but it's a start. It's an attempt to try to make nature valuable. So we can have a very long discussion about a concept of nature is being priceless. I agree with that. It is priceless. But if you want to make it work in the real world, where the world counts money and resources, for the moment, the way to avoid that is to introduce natural capital. Now, if you look at Europe and what people think, often that is led by science-based target initiative when it comes to companies and publicity and news. So, two things around there. Science-based target initiative openly is not a big fan of carbon credits because the logic is you need to reduce carbon in your operations and your impact in general first and only then offset, which makes sense. That's what companies should do. However, they are supporting insetting, which means removing carbon in their supply chains and value chains. So let's say if you're an agribusiness and you're working with a lot of land and you're going into soil carbon credits, that is insetting in your value chain. So you can do that. If you're a construction company and you're removing carbon through bio-based materials and carbon credits in there, that's insetting. So that shapes the understanding of companies and what they're going to do as businesses going forward. However, this is a voluntary market. So companies that are doing that, they're choosing to do that voluntary. That's not something they can report in their regulation in terms of their own emissions. It's not. It's not their emissions. It's certificates that they buy. But they want to go a step beyond. They want to make commitments. If you look at Microsoft, for example, they have a commitment to offset all carbon that they've ever emitted. They also have a commitment to regenerate as much land as they have used for their operations. So there are companies that are taking it a step forward and they're going to be doing that no matter what. Now, with all this beautiful description, I lost my train of thought. Um, how people view it. Sometimes you have a research in The Guardian that comes up and you say, carbon credits are the next biggest scandal. And yes, potentially there is greenwashing in the space, but we're not. If you look at the packaging and companies saying this package is completely recyclable, or this package is made from biomaterials, or it's renewable package, there is also a lot of greenwashing in that space. There are a lot of things that are not going perfect, but what we need to do better in sustainability space is we need to be more supportive. I'm not saying we have to lie about things that are being not done and say they're getting done. No. But there's not always 100% better solution. And very often I have seen that people or companies, they want to go from 0 to 100%. And until they have a solution that is 100% better, they will not move and they will stick with the status quo.
They let
Well, we could be
perfect be
doing
the enemy of better.
exactly. We could be already doing 70% better or 90% better and arrive to 100% in the meantime. So yes, there could be people that are pushing back on carbon credits. But there are also people that realize that carbon credits are a mechanism to bring the money where it's needed, where you need to restore land, where you need to give money to the local communities. It's important. That's how it works. And the way to frame that as well through natural capital for me is brilliant, because carbon credits, they have that bad connotation as offsets, but natural capital sounds a lot more solid, and there
Mm.
is a lot more data and tech and modeling and research and monitoring with drones and geospatial and everything else that goes into it, that makes it a lot more of a solid concept, because you're not just looking at the forest in the sense of it removed a ton of carbon. You're looking at everything on all the ecosystem services that it provides.
So many great points there. One thing I love about our intern program is we get asked amazing questions, and I got one of those on the drive here, which was very similar about this. Like, how do we protect against greenwashing? To some degree, the sale of our carbon products, and it'll be the same model in Europe, we will produce the best credit we can. It will be rooted in that land and an environment we own, manage, protect, improve. We will work with local contractors. We will find the right seed source. We'll restore peatland in the right way because it's the right thing to do in that way. Um, on that basis, if you buy a carbon credit from us, you have improved the environment. Yes, you've trapped a ton of carbon. You've sequestered that ton in time, but you've also delivered all those benefits for biodiversity, for nature, for wildlife, for water, for resilience, for that landscape. So even if you're in a bizarre world where your intent is to greenwash, you can't help but improve the environment as a result of it. So of course we would love the buyer to have science-based. Burgess Salmon, we adore you, the ideal buyer. Science-backed targets, commitments to reduce things, doing the exact right thing, and only offsetting what they can't fully get to. At the scale to which we need to operate globally, it will be millions and maybe billions of tons that need to be captured and offset. They won't all be perfect buyers, but what I can say is if you buy a carbon credit from OC, whatever else you do in your business, the world will be a little bit better because you bought our credits. Um, and that only came thank you to a wonderful question this evening, so it got me there. The other bit I think is important to say is um, green on green attack is just bloody pointless.
Yeah.
So we get accused of being a cheerleader for the wider sector, and people sometimes say it as a criticism. I wear it as a badge of honor. So we'll get interviewed occasionally, and people will say, "Oh, don't you think this company don't do this well?" And I just pivot and say something I think they do that's great, because I want to celebrate, reward, improve, and help elevate those people who are trying to do something. So it might be a different variety of it, or forestry is a great example. So we don't do commercial forestry. Might we in Europe? I don't know. Possibly, depending on if the land use gives us that way. Right now, others are better placed in the UK. So, be it Gresham House, be it Foresight, shout out to those guys. They do brilliant stuff. Um, but they do it better than we do. So, they're better placed to do it. Just because we don't do commercial forestry doesn't mean we think it's wrong. We can celebrate the things they do. I think we need, I mean, you know this far better than I do, but we need better locally sourced sustainable building materials. Um, that'll be really fascinating as well to see what your thoughts about our built property footprint will be. In the UK, we always want around 20% of the value of the asset invested to be in the built property so that it can have people living, working, interacting with the estate. Do you envision we'd have that same model in Europe? We'd still want built property on the estates?
I do. I do. There are a lot of, depends on the land prices. Built property could be an important part of making a business model. Ecotourism, sustainable tourism. It's a very interesting thing because Europe here is actually working on something that is not existing yet in the UK, which is carbon storage in buildings. So that also means that the building portfolio that is high emitting is actually going to go in price, meaning that is built of materials that create a lot of carbon emissions, are using fossil fuels, for example, for insulation, fossil fuel based product. The bio based natural materials, wood and other types of materials, mycelium, they're actually going to be part of the carbon removal. And that means that the price of that building is going to go higher in price because it's going to be de risked versus carbon. So it's a very, very interesting space to watch.
Does that exist already in terms of like the equivalent of a woodland carbon code, but for the built environment, or is it pending? Is it coming in the future?
So European methodology is coming in 2026. There is currently a global methodology from a standard called Rainbow, which focuses on carbon storage on the material level, but the EU is going to make it on the level of a building. So calculating the whole footprint of the building and then comparing it to the baseline and
And are
seeing
they
how much
thinking
smaller it
new
is.
builds or retrofit as well?
New builds to start with.
That'd be really interesting.
It would be really interesting. And speaking of wood, for example, a sustainable forestry, there is going to be a lot more demand for sustainable timber. And I'll admit I was a little bit skeptical about sustainable timber, but then I interviewed Bjarke Ingels, who is a world renowned architect. He's working on a lot of buildings for the European Commission, for example, for a whole new city in Nepal. His projects in New York. He's a Danish architect, actually. And he's building a few airports from sustainable timber. And what he told me is that the beauty of it is that if you maintain it well, it stays for hundreds of years. And then you don't need any finishing. So you're actually saving on carbon. Of course, if you don't deforest and you do it in a good way, you actually save on all the materials that you need to put on top because the timber is just beautiful. You don't need anything to complement it. So there are a lot of little pieces to think about in the built environment.
I love that. It's going to be so exciting to explore some of those ideas with you here and in Europe. So one of the really interesting drivers we've got is in the UK, we we've got targets to build millions of houses that over a decade we haven't hit. So we've like a 10-year absence of new properties. So there is largely regarded a housing crisis, both urban and rural. Will we find, and I know we can't generalize across the entire of Europe, but will we find countries that feel as if they have those same challenges, that they're not building enough houses, there's not enough homes for young people? Or is that a UK specific problem?
Oh, probably we will. In Europe is really diverse. That's the beauty of it. We're gonna have to explore so many different realities.
I'm so excited about that because even going out to Sweden, every pillar you're working on, every assumption about a conversation, I started to go, I can't assume that. Be it how so we learned that 70 to 80% of Sweden is forested, whereas it's probably like 7 to 8% of Scotland. I don't know the actual number. Can we check that out? Thank you. But it was fundamentally different. The species you're encountering, we want to see beavers come back. They were talking about bears and moose across there and wolves, and it was like, this is completely different. The rules, the regulations, the systems, the permitting. I was just like, every conversation I was learning something. It was the most exciting experience because things that you thought you knew, you couldn't found your principles on those.
Yeah.
It's like the laws of physics had completely changed again. But I wonder, could you see the requirement to build new houses in rural environments as being beneficial to the model, or do you think it's something we won't have to think about?
We're gonna have to see.
19. Cool. 19% compared to 70 to 80. Yeah.
Well, first of all, that makes me think of Iceland because Iceland used to be full of forests and now they're struggling to bring like 1% of those forests back.
What percentage have we got Iceland forestry? Okay. Then he's doing a great job behind camera with a stinking cold. It's 60. Yeah. And what about Iceland? 2% of Iceland.
Can you imagine it used to be full of forests? Like it's unbelievable.
So
It's
is that
complete.
agricultural clearance and or climate change impacts?
I might be wrong, but as I remembered, it's the Vikings that came and cut it down.
Boats.
Yeah, and now the environment is so harsh, it's very difficult to do reforestation.
So
It
interesting.
completely
Another thing we're going to
changed.
have to look at,
Yeah,
growth curves of timber and woodland and peatland
yeah,
quality and depth and oh, so cool, the variety, and each interaction will learn something different.
yeah. And you know what I love that you're not saying, "Oh my God, it's going to be so complex." You're like, "This
Oh
is
no,
so exciting,"
it's gonna be an absolute nightmare. Like so,
but an exciting one,
yeah.
right?
Well, you talked about entrepreneurship earlier and how hard it was. Often people say, "Oh, what's the hardest thing?" And I just go, "Everything." All of it's hard. So at the moment, right now, we are running 4 of the biggest nature restoration projects the UK's ever seen at the same time. So we're using like the entire supply chain of peatland restoration experts and tree planters and we're exhausting seed source supply and fencing expertise. Shout out to Caledonian Climate and to Tree Story for incredible help. You're amazing at what you do, helping us in terms of delivery. But we're pushing systems and processes that were meant to be slow and steady and methodical and take years. We're doing it in weeks and days and trying to do things faster and different and more efficient than before. So all of it's hard. Through that's the operational stuff, through to accounting standards and monitoring, verification. It's why we need technology. And for us, that means data, it means science, it means, yes, I'm a scientist, Bill. Data, tech. Elle, who again is behind camera, has been giving me some stick today about how I'm not really a scientist. True. Not anymore. But how we're pushing every element of technology and data to allow us to work faster and more efficiently. And I do feel you described it earlier that the UK's ahead in terms of the governance and the structures and the laws on this. It does feel like we're going to be approaching Europe with your help and lead at the same time as we were when we started OC in the UK. It feels like we've got that 5 or sort of 10-year buffer. And if we go well and go quickly, we should be able to build some incredible momentum. Um, you've done that really well in lots of different ways. How do we make sure we land well and we start building that momentum for OC in Europe?
Well, you guys have done the hard part. You've already done it once. It already works. You have incredible brand. You have incredible partners. You have incredible lands. You have incredible investors. You have incredible carbon credit buyers with a world record. So you've already done it once. Now, to make sure we succeed in Europe, we need to take it step by step to succeed. Because I was so amazed when I was talking to the team in terms of every single thing that you have thought through that I haven't even thought that I need to think about. Like, for example, foreseeing the permits for renewable energy for the future so that the investor can get a higher returns. Or the attention to details you put into estates so that when investor enters, they get a premium special experience.
You talked to Charles this evening then.
Yeah, I've talked to him a while ago. I was noticing when we entered here, how what he told me actually is realized. So there are so many things you already thought through. On one hand, we are going for Europe and it's complicated and it's different countries and it's new reality with a lot of different regulations as well and different climate and everything else. But on the other hand, the blueprint is already there. So I believe with my whole heart that as long as we're all on board for the mission and with the passion and the belief that it has to work and is going to work and is going to bring impact, it's just taking it step by step and figuring it out because you've done the hard work. Now it's applying it to a new reality and seeing how we can make it work there.
I'm sold. I want to sign up for OC Europe now. I'll celebrate in behind camera.
Can it be an intern of a C Europe? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
um, did you just offer me a job as your intern? That's brilliant.
I totally did not.
Yeah, it'll end up there. It'll end up there. Um, this is going to be a big challenge on you personally. What does that look like from a family perspective as mum and wife and professional and all the different hats you wear? What's it going to look like for you personally?
I don't know if I'm a weird mom, but I never feel good enough in a sense when I'm working. I feel like not enough because I'm not spending enough quality time with the kids. But when I'm with the kids, I feel not good enough that I'm not making enough impact for them to have a better future. So it's always a careful balancing act where you're trying to merge all those roles together. Now, my husband became a politician a year ago. So he's a local elderman in our city. Um, which I love to see those projects and what he's implementing on the local level, also to see how nature and environment works on the local level. So we have now a interesting family dynamics because he works two jobs actually. He has his normal job and he is a politician. That means days and evenings and weekends. We have me and we have two amazing kids. I love them so much. Um, what I love about the C model though is that you combine both remote and seeing each other and doing work on the ground. So it actually makes a lot of things easier When I need to be there for the kids of the family, I can be there. But then on the other hand, when I need to get the work done, can get the work done. And I'm no stranger to working after the kids are in bed or during weekends. They're kind of used to it. Um, and I was just talking to my son the other day because I said, "Sweetie, I know it's your birthday, but I was invited to go speak at an event about the work that I'm going to do. And I'm going to come back home on the morning of your birthday. Is that okay? Because if you tell me it's not, I will not go because your birthday is important. I want to be there for you." And once I already missed it for another event and he felt really sad. So I wanted to make sure he'd be okay with that. And he looked at me and he said, "Well, mommy, if you're going to go make nature better with your work, then it's okay." And I was like, oh my God, he's amazing. So I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but we all love a little challenge. Little.
I
And
think
as
that's
long as,
gorgeous.
all my heart and all my passion isn't here, we'll make it work.
So Abby's grabbing her heart. Elle's in tears behind the screen. Like we've had a long day at OC, but that's really moving people.
I'll tell my son that what he said moved people.
We so we had a guest in from Knight Frank, who super cool guy, the head of viticulture. So they're wine expert, buys and sells wine estates. And I told a story about my kids, and he went, "Oh, the dude," and I told my son about this. He's like, "I'm famous, right, Dad?" I'm like, "Yeah, yes, mate, you are famous." Um, what did Nick say when you were like, "I'm going to go work with OC. I'm going to go to this crazy new European startup version of OC"?
Nick is amazing. He's always been supportive of me. So whenever I told him I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, he just took it at face value.
So it's just the next one. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna make it work. Just tell me how, and we're gonna make it work." So, for example, now his parents are helping out. Tomorrow, he's just gonna take kids together with him to a political event. And you have no idea, but they were so excited. They were like, "Yes, we're going to go there. We're going to help."
That's gonna help his popularity
Um,
massively.
it's
Like,
totally his image. Him going around doing politics with the kids really works. So you see, you just have to see, you just
the
have to see the
I
positives.
I always think people who do our type of roles don't talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
They talk about the brand and the positioning and those big bits. They don't talk about the travel logistics, the miles, the hours, the sacrifices you make. Like, we've literally I'm putting in, like, home KPIs. So because of the scale of the business next year, literally agreed with Helen, we're gonna have, what's the average number of travel days I'm gonna do the year? What are the times and the dates you need me to be back for things? And that's the art form in this. Like, I hate work-life balance because it means one's always winning and losing. It's just trying to make it all fit together, and it's making sure your partners, your family, your friends, your important people get the things they need, and you try and make everything fit together in the best way possible. Um, we're gonna have a lot of adventures, but it's gonna be a lot of logistics as well to make this possible.
It is logistics as well, but I think people that are not, don't love their job for different circumstances. I know there are people that need to do the jobs to feed their families and to cover the loans or the expenses. Then they approach it more as a 9 to 5 kind of thing. When you work on something you're passionate about, you forget that it's your job. Like, my brain literally never stops. I get so many ideas that I have to implement that I don't have a 9 to 5 time of day to do that. Like, I meditate in the morning, I get an idea, I need to implement it. On the weekend, I wake up, I'm like, oh, I haven't thought of this. This needs to be done. So once you're so fully into it, once you're passionate about it, time stops moving 9 to 5. It moves differently. But on the other hand, you bring your family on board with you because you get excited about it, because they get excited about it. You get to do something different. Like, I'm dreaming of taking my kids to one of the estates and showing them the transformation. For me, it's like the big life goal thing. I want them to be more connected with nature. And so far haven't done a very good job at doing that. I also feel nature calling to me. Like, lately, I literally physically feel that I need to be out, and not just out on the street walking among the houses. I want to walk in a forest and see a beautiful castle in between the woods, but that's the type of environment that's calling to me. So yes, it's going to be a juggling process, but on the other hand, it's not a traditional balancing act. And what I feel really helps now, especially to make me feel better, not such a bad mother, is to have those little special moments with the family or the kids. Like lately, I started reading to the kids before going to bed. I was not doing that before. I'm teaching them a little bit of Russian. So we are reading fairy tales for bed. And they love that moment and they lay on me and they hug me and they try to spot the words. And after that, I feel good because I spent quality time with them. But it was 15, 20 minutes. So I'm trying to find those touch points with them where I'm going to be fully present and going to be doing something special, really just for us. And that makes a whole difference that just being together the whole day, but constantly on your devices or not paying attention to each other.
It's don't count the time, make the time count. When we first started at OC, I was very fortunate to meet 5 or 6 incredibly successful people, people who had achieved things beyond the realms of possibility. And when I knew they had good relationships with families still, I'd go, how's that worked? How have you fit things together? And the things that I've added as a result of that is the 2 things I heard was uh, dad or mum, whoever the person that worked a lot away, they made breakfast on a Saturday morning. So I put in a thing that we had pancakes every Saturday morning with the kids, and if the team visit, they get pancakes too.
Wow.
Um, that's pivoted now because the kids play sport every Saturday and Sunday morning. So Saturday night, dad makes pizza from scratch every Saturday. So that's the go-to. Although the kids had friends around the other day, and I had to make 7 different types of pizza. So my entire kitchen was full of pizza. I have done it for you as well, yes, divas. And then iconic holidays. So experiences together. So it doesn't have to be incredibly remote places or like decadent places, but when you do take time as a holiday, make it count and be present when you're there. And they're the memories that will stick over the years. Um, I didn't think we'd get onto like hints and tips about how to have functional lives with families and stuff, but that's the hard
But
bit, right?
that's the question that everybody asks as well. They're like, how are you being a super person? How are you managing everything? How are you having such a perfect balance? It's like, I don't. I'm not perfect.
No
It's a
one
constant
does.
struggle and readjustment. No one does. But on the other hand, to move fast and to achieve something, what I've been realizing in the past year, it's also due to focus because you can be everywhere at the same time and have dozens of meetings, which will not lead to any results. Yet you can have focus and know I'm only going to be having those types of meetings with those types of people, which will bring the results. So that's really important. The focus and knowing what you're doing and trying to achieve at the moment. It comes with experience and with learnings.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, how will you change because of OC?
I feel like I'm home. I feel like I can be myself. By the way, today for the first time, I'm not wearing my suit, and suit is always like my armor, so now I feel very exposed and authentic. Um,
And you specifically asked for that T-shirt. You're the
I
only
did.
one who's got the logo color and branding that way.
Did Andrew tell you it was a deal breaker?
No, it didn't.
That's what I told him.
Louise did. Excellent.
Um, yes, I love the t-shirt. I also love how we combine black and white. I think that's
We're covering off some bases, aren't
yeah,
we?
yeah, yeah. We are. Um, so I feel like I'm home with a C. I feel like it's the people that understand each other, that are all striving towards the same goal. And when you feel home, when you're doing what you think your purpose is, that makes me feel incredibly at peace. That no matter how much hard work comes along the way or challenges or things we're gonna have to figure out, I'm at peace because I'm at the right place where I need to be.
I'm glad. I don't I don't know how on earth we've done that. So Fee says the exact same thing. So Fee came from a FTSE 250 house building organization. So a very traditionally masculine environment. She was incredibly successful. They're one of the most influential people in property. And she talked about being able to be herself here. In fact, I think we covered it on her podcast. She wasn't Fee in work. She was Fiona. So when we first met her, she had a really cold, um, uber professional exterior, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know if she's gonna fit." And then we spent time with her on the estate. She came to visit. I was like, "Oh my god, this person's amazing." Then all of a sudden, we get Fee, and we get the amazingly charismatic, warm, engaging, caring, you know, mum, wife, professional, superhero. But she said she can be her here. I don't know how we've done that. Probably Andrew, probably all the rest of the people. I'm just really glad we have. So thank you for saying that.
You
So I asked
really
you,
have figured it out, and it's special.
we've asked how OC will change you. How are you going to change OC?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know if I will. I hope that it will help us see scale the impact and arrive to crazy goals that you haven't even imagined yet. That's my hope and that's my passion.
And that's our belief. This is like the ultimate love fest.
I was thinking about that. We're supposed to discuss business here.
Oh, we've covered that. It's fine. Um, do you believe in fate?
I mean, I told you the Pringles story, right? Now it brought me to Belgium. I don't know. I don't know if I believe in fate, but I believe in purpose.
I kind of view I almost believe in like serendipity or uh, like there's a sense of humor in the universe. Certain things just seem so ludicrous. Like the chance of things happening is just so rare and ridiculous. There's something weird going on. I don't think I want to believe in fate because I think it makes people lazy. It's like, oh, whatever happens will be. It's like, no, whatever happens is when people get off their backside and work for it. And the harder you work, the luckier you get and things like that. Now, yes, we started taking invites to events in Europe, and they came about on the back of the book, and everyone's had. In fact, every Abby and Elle's hard work got us invited to the IPE conference. We went and spoke. That had a open floodgates of interest from Europe coming. But let's be very clear: we are not even thinking about this. If you hadn't have approached us about it, getting a talent like you is not a thing. It's like it's like the first £100 million footballer that was signed. It's not possible to do without you wanting to be part of this. So be very clear. Like OC going to Europe is because of you. So thank you so much for trusting us and coming to do it.
You're welcome with a new challenge.
Oh, I think you're going to be a joy. You're going to be a joy. Um,
Speaking about serendipity, there is actually the art and science of creating good luck. It's not random that some people are really lucky and make things happen and others not. There's this brilliant book by Dr. Christian Bush. It's called Connecting the Dots. And they did a lot of experience. One of them was they took two participants, one who said they're generally lucky and another one who said they're generally unlucky. And they asked them to walk into a coffee shop. So first entered a woman who thought she was unlucky. She entered and she missed a $5 bill that was laying in the front of the coffee shop. She took her coffee. There was only one empty chair in the coffee shop. She sat there, she drank her coffee silently. She walked out. They asked, "How was your day?" She said it was regular. There was a guy afterwards who said he was generally lucky. He entered the coffee shop. He saw the $5 bill. He saw the only empty chair. He struck a conversation to the guy next to him, who turned out to be a really high profile person who could make really high profile connections for him and make his dreams come true. So they connected, they exchanged contacts. And when he was asked, "How was your day?" he said it was brilliant. So there is a lot of things that you can do to actually create good luck and serendipity. There is a lot of that already ingrained in what OC is doing and the brilliant marketing strategy. A lot of the ideas of Daniel Priestley that are being implemented and the work that you guys have been doing. A lot of that was also the work that I've been doing before with LinkedIn and putting the word out there and connecting to different partners. But you are here with OC where you are, not just because of serendipity, but because of how hard you work to create that serendipity and good luck. And me joining for Europe is not just a random fact. It's also the fact that I've seen you doing such an amazing job before that I couldn't see myself in any other place.
I think before we get any more tears in the room, we should call that a night. Elena, we are going to have the most incredible 2026. I'm delighted that you're coming in as director for Europe. Thank you. It's going to be an amazing experience.
Can't wait.